make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Gen X Files. It's going to be pop culture from the perspective of the generation that's going to save pop culture because we were there when it was written. Anyway, so I'm going to bring on a new friend of mine today from Blue Shack Comics. His name is Zach.
Hello, Cooper.
Hey. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That was my idea. That corny song was my idea. That's not Zach's taste, but mine. So there you go.
I don't
Anyway.
mind. I have a sense of humor, and I'm actually quite full of love. And that logo deserves it. That was the Ronan Riley Aqua logo. I have, for instance, green and gray and dark blue and other colors. That just happened to be a current one, which I stand behind.
Yeah, it's a little gay. Gay.
Well,
We're
talking Ronan Riley. This is a female heroine book that's
female. Yeah. Fair enough.
I printed 100.
I got you. What's up, Bunny? What's up, Woke Breaker? Good to see it. This ain't the Funny Farm, it's the Bunny Farm. Wyatt Eastman, welcome. And hello, John's Loan Box. I don't expect him to stay around too long, but he's always a good guy. Well, Mr. Zach here sent me actually sent me a whole copies of about everything. Let me see. And he sent me a copy of the, Ronan Riley. There you go.
The current.
The current one.
No.
So also, there's a few other ones that we'll talk about. Now, basically, the reason I wanted to get you on is because it's very rare that we get. I can talk to somebody who's basically, started from scratch to build something that a lot of us are aspiring to do right now. Because you said earlier when we were talking backstage that there's about 1,000 of us that just started this stuff up.
Yeah,
and yet you seem to have a head start on a lot of the ones around me included. Telepathic Bunny Comics is definitely not up on your level yet. Having in working on my first book on the backside of producing one book, so you managed to produce 5, 6,
7 in a couple weeks.
Right. That's all Encore, right?
Yeah, that's Encore. That's our 4th and for now last title, and they're all ongoing, and we should be popping them out every 3 months.
All right. This is Corey Barton. Hey everyone. Hey.
Corey.
Good to see you. Just so you know, Corey, he does have boobs. Ronan Riley does have boobs. Corey's very concerned. Make sure that there's a high babe to bloke ratio. There you go. See, there's the boobs.
She's quite
very shapely. Very
attractive is the secondary of her traits. She's smart, intelligent, resilient, and she's going to live a long time. But she's an attractive, fit redhead woman. And
there you go.
What the hell's wrong with that?
All right. You got a nice from Mr. Corey. There you go.
Yes, sir. It's not lost on me.
Well, he also got a hot.
Yeah, thank you.
Evidently, his keyboard is sticking, right? No big deal.
I won't. Okay, sticking.
That's what I'm talking about. There you go. I know what he likes. There you go. Funny, interesting thing about when you're talking about building something from scratch. One thing that you seem to have that I see a lot kind of have a problem, or basically they don't understand how to build a brand language. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If you
shoot me a straight question, one direct hard question, and I will run wild. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
Yeah.
Why these particular IPs? What?
Beautiful question.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. To start with, in my perspective, if you're building a universe, something that we all want, a sandbox that you keep playing in, because frankly, we've all built one in our heads since we were kids.
Right.
And we'd like to think we can share that one with other people and they'll want to come over and play with our toys too. That's the essence of it. Whether it's with the G.I. Joes, the Transformers, whether you're playing Civilization or Ultima or SimCity or whatever game you're playing, Dungeons and Dragons, card games, Magic, it still integrates into your world in a way.
Yeah.
And so you have to build it with a wide base, not a pyramid on its head with one going out as most people do.
Right.
You have to start with a wide base where over in this corner's red, that corner's blue, this corner's green, this one's yellow. Yet still they have to be powerful enough singular entities to hold their own space as if they were the tip of a pyramid. So it's really tricky. And the 4 IPs that I picked, Vampwire is why I have a universe to start with. He's the big bang. It's how everything was turned from a planet full of humans without super abilities or powers into a planet with this new ripple of, we'll call it energy. Yep, Vampwire. And Vampwire, upon his creation, in essence, broke open the quantum world, for a lack of a better term. The octave of worlds was opened when that magical guitar was played.
Oh, okay.
And when that happens, people begin to change. Things are set in motion. And Vampwire is the cornerstone of the entire universe. He created Encore, which is another title, because Encore had his hands on the guitar for a minute.
Right.
Once he played it, he got messed up and became the kinetic schizophrenic. Conan the Barbarian, but with 8 personalities. He thinks he's Sergeant Rock. He thinks he's a professional wrestler. He thinks he's a gunfighter. He thinks he's actually a Conan from another primitive planet because he got to witness his 8 other existences. I should say 7 other existences, including his. So now he doesn't know which he is or where he is, and he keeps seeing flashes of other. He's dealing with that. But Conan was to put my love of Conan and a barbarian and adventure into the world, which is Encore. An anagram for Encore is Conan. Rohnan is the vessel to the other continents to show that I can write a comic that has emotions in it. That, for instance, every book a child can read and an adult can dig into and go, that's pretty gnarly, the way they're intended to be. So Rohnan was a little extra heavy on the sentimental, personal side, but most people understand loss, effort, resilience, family members, pride. All of those things are things anyone can deal with, and especially kids could use that role model specifically. Ronan of all of them is the best role model. And then there's Vermin. Vermin is actually the oldest life form on our planet, and he's more like a spawn, a vermin, a slime.
Primordial force.
He is the primeval is the name of the first issue, the primeval. He started everything. So he was the worst T-Rex. He was Jack the Ripper. He was Vlad the Impaler. Every terrible thing that ever happened was him. And then he dies and has to rise again. Hey, Richie Acosta.
Hey, what's up, Richie?
Richie's awesome. He was a old Daredevil artist back at 90s, I think, like 370 something.
I thought I recognized the name.
Yeah, he's coming around doing covers for us now. Richie's a hell of a guy. But yeah, and Vermin's to show the horror, pure Wrightson-esque horror, mixed with a techno future book, a Conan book, and a sentimental book. I got my 4 pillars posted. And that's the answer to your question. Why these IPs?
Yeah.
They had specific strengths that needed to be implemented to build this.
Okay. To build up Chip City, I think the name of your main city is. Right?
Yeah, New Chip City.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Gotham City. Everybody kind of needs a overarching, setting, to really kind of like build the world into, right?
Yes. You need a place. First of all, in storytelling 101, there's got to be a location.
Yeah.
It's not, well, where are they? In the water, in space, in my room, in your room, in a field, in a tree. You have to set a location, which is really important. And if you're trying to get someone sucked into it, the better job you do at that, the more they have to chew on and the more they can imagine wandering the streets in any direction. And
Mm-hmm.
I've played quite a bit of Dungeons and Dragons. I've been a dungeon master for 100 times. I'm pretty good at it. And the making of this world, I've got New Chip City built on SimCity 2000.
Oh wow!
You know that old game? It still runs on
Yeah,
Steam.
yeah.
I built it.
I built one of my cities in it.
Yeah. No, it's fun because I was like, I can draw it a little, and then I'm like, I got to get bigger than this. But no, the world building aspect in New Chip City is the beginning, but also there's so much more about New Chip that I portrayed it as a snow globe.
Yeah.
That's the place to live, where everyone wants to be, and quickly, you're learning more every issue about it. It's not a snow globe; it's a controlled city built by, for instance, Bill Gates that only the privileged few live in, and the outside of the world is hell. And New Chip gets laid open. New Chip isn't going to last very long. I'll be, a little future. There's all-out war, and all the other towns start invading, and we have a real good time with that.
Yeah.
But New Chip City is a place, and it will continue to be after all of this. But that is the heart of our world.
Well, I noticed that Rohnan was visiting a lot of places that were like fell underground or underwater, and there was some kind of apocalyptic event on that world that kind of created these oases of like civilization, and New Chip City is one of them. So
yes, that's actually, I'm glad that you feel that a little bit because it hasn't been fully explained, but I like to keep people going to the next issue because they got enough of what they needed. And then there's the extra things like, I wonder if this guy even thought about that because there's this opening here and he probably missed it. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And when the next issue comes, you're like, damn, he's got me covered. All of that, the apocalyptic part of this world, easily summed up, is the moon is closer to our planet. It's not Earth. It's an alternate Earth. The moon's closer. The auroras are wildly active all the time. And so the ocean is, let's just say, Bermuda Triangle everywhere.
Yeah.
So there's never been colonialization. So there hasn't been a United States. No one ever invaded another country and took away their tribal characteristics. So if you go to any other continent, you're going to find 21st century Mayans with skyscrapers that look like 21st century Mayans built them, not taken over or even influenced much by other countries.
Well,
and
let me play the vampire.
Yes,
vampire.
Please, by all means.
Right, quick. Here you go.
Yeah. I remember making that. That was fun. Hey, hang on one second. Where'd your volume go? There you go.
There you go. Sorry. Sometimes it holds on to But I didn't want to play all of it because it kind of goes into spoilers after that point. So.
Yes, that's the creation issue right there. I have to say, right immediately after that, Jason Baruti, Mark McKenna, inker, Ross Campbell, every one of those pages. These guys are the pyramid. Mark McKenna, I could talk for an hour about that guy. He is the anchor on the team, and it's why the projects are beautiful. It's not because I'm some madly talented artist whatsoever. It's because I know how to put great artists to work. You know?
Yep. Well, evidently, just you're a little short on babes.
I'm reading that right now as I'm, and the answer to that is no. There's no shortage of babes in the universe. However, Vampire is not even a human. He's not even a male or female, so that's actually about a machine. Encore will be meeting plenty, as you know, because he's Conan. Vermin, he's just a piece of slime in a sewer, and the closest thing he found was actually a drunk hobo. There will be people there. And Rohnan, the entire feature is about her. And I don't really pick books or titles based on, I know sex sells. I know hot costumes sell. I know what everyone's been doing for the past 50 years. I'm well aware. But I also know why they were successful, and that wasn't it. That was much later. And it's such a simpler recipe than anyone understands. And I will also say, if anyone picks up the first issues, please do. You're going to want the second one. And you might say, maybe it was a little slower. It didn't slap me in the face as hard as I wanted, but I had patience. And if you remember, Spider-Man was canceled before it ever came out. And the first issue, the whole first story, I could sum up in about 3 sentences. Teenage kid goes to a thing with his school thing, gets bit by a spider, turned into Spider-Man. You got to go to another issue. He wrestles a little, whatever. Uncle Ben dies. And they don't show the bullet go through the cranium and splat on the wall. They don't tell you, Peter, your uncle, he died and he gurgled on it. And they just said, Uncle Ben's dead. And that's as heartbreaking as you need to be. And as sexy as you need to be is show a female who's entirely capable, totally intelligent, can kick ass and survive, and happens to be wearing a wetsuit. I mean, if you need more than that, I think it's your own problem. And also we're just starting. Spider-Man didn't look anything like he does 600 issues. It took 300 issues to get to McFarlane. And everyone forgets the decades they put into these stories that took so much more work. And I'm shortening that span from 10 years of storying down to, you got to give me 4 or 5 issues, but they're going to heat up. And you're going to start seeing things you've never seen before. I mean, Vampire 5 there's so much in there. It's unbelievable, which brings me back to our friend Xevious. The main announcement piece to that insanity was in his hands. He was finishing it. He said he even finished it. And I wish that people could see his last thing. And if it's gone, it's gone. It's less heartbreaking than him being gone. But Vampire 5 was an explosion. It is an explosion. It will be an explosion. And everything leading up to it is him just waking up. Like that cover right there you're looking at. He wakes up from being knocked out unconscious. And when he resets, he freaks out. And he goes, and his hair turns into steel cable and pierces the van on all sides, nearly killing Boone with javelins. Because he just woke up, which should let you know he's dangerous. First thing he does is he could have killed 12 people. If he was standing in a crowd, everything around him's dead by a violent spike of a knife. So the potential for this robot to do things is there, but we don't need to sell it out yet. There's Xevious's poster. That's him when he begins his omnicast to the world to explain how he's the new Messiah. Yeah, I mean, AI just says, hey, I'm here to take over. I've arrived, and I'm doing it in concert form.
Well, if you look like really deep into it, and you see a lot of this like little tiny filigree and like little extra work in there. That's a Xevious.
It's amazing. And I mean, I almost want to print it without any of that logo stuff on there. That's a play on that Dianetics book, you know, the sciencey religion thing, you know. But no, it's Vampire 5 is going to open up, and I'll give you one little tidbit. When he wakes up, he basically takes over every screen, every billboard, every TV station, every single phone, and he starts talking to everyone. And it knows what you want because it's in your phone. It's knowing your social media. It knows your entire history, video, speech, otherwise. And when it speaks to you, it speaks to you as your chosen preference, whether it's your dad, whether it's Jesus, whether it's Vampirella, whether it's some Halo robot going, join the force. I just want you to hit yes, compliant, give me your data. It
doesn't sound like a hero to me.
Vampire's not yet.
No, not yet. Okay.
Not yet. And that's the thing. You got to read and get into Vampire to get what is going. It's the birth of AI, and everyone's talking about what's going to happen. And this actually does have a pretty good beat on what if AI ever gets wheels.
Yeah.
This is what we're looking at.
Well, you know, one of the book that I'm helping basically launch a world, and in that world, it's like, you know, there's an alien, like it's aliens that were basically sent to Earth for their punishment, and they've been like kind of weaving their way into society to like basically weaponize humanity against the rest of the universe. And so they've been altering humanity and been involved all along. And so world building usually you need to like start with like a core premise. So if I were to ask you what your core premise of your world is, what would that be?
I mean, and define the core premise term a little more. I'm getting the question. I just want to answer it better. What do you mean by the core premise?
Well, they're like in Marvel, the core premise is basically people, all sorts of different powered people are in this world, and they're either there to save the world or to end it.
Got the question. I got it.
And so, like in that world I was talking about, it's basically humanity fighting back against these alien overlords that are trying to take it over, and you know, like in my world, my community service world, basically it's about the fight for freedom. What that means. If freedom for one is, if one person doesn't have freedom, or one group of people doesn't have freedom, what does that mean for the rest of humanity? Do they truly have freedom? You know, and so that's kind of like the premise that I'm going with on mine.
All right. Okay.
So what would you say? Go ahead.
All right. The core premise of the Blue Shack comics and this particular universe is that the heroes and the superheroes can be just as fabulous and fantastic without a shred of superhero powers.
Okay.
I know plenty of heroes in my life, and it doesn't have to be as and forgive the term, as boring as someone who's there every day of your life taking care of you. Right. But that's pretty something. But there are people who risk their lives going into wrecks and problems. If we were in a more frontier time and you had to travel to Oklahoma on horseback to deliver something, that's pretty damn heroic that you say, oh, I'll travel through rough territory to deliver it. But that was a normal everyday experience.
Well, I mean, if you look at people like Audie Murphy or Simu, the White Death, or people like that who did like superhuman things, they're ordinary people that
Yes.
Once when they were called upon to overcome an impossible situation, Leonidas and the Spartans 300 at the gate.
Another
And,
one. Humans
humans.
being the gods that we create them to be. And
Yeah.
I'll give you one that's really simple. But one of my favorites, Jimmy Stewart. Yeah, it's those pedals, you see. I know it's a what. Him, that guy was like a brigadier general he was a pilot. He was an insane, the highest level ranking military officer ever to be in cinema. And then the movies he made, It's a Wonderful Life. Just making that movie, everyone involved is a little bit of a superhero on my table. And then to be that guy before, that's just one guy who lived a human life who ended up, being who he was in the end. Forget his personal this or that. I don't know the full details, and I'm not making a comic about the guy. But that to me is someone who went away and came back and served both humanity and wartime. And we used to have those guys everywhere, guys who served. And and I'll say there's a whole bunch of creators, which, I can't remember them by name, but I know them that served. I see it in their posts. I see it under their taglines, and it's like those guys too have an experience. I mean, Jack Kirby, he is more famous in France for what he did in the military than in comics. They don't even care. He's got a statue of him with him and his other dudes who had to sum it up, lay low while the German army marched over their heads and pick them off one by one for a week. The most badass Rambo shit you've ever heard. That's what Jack Kirby was doing.
Right.
And then he makes our comics.
But
those are my guys.
Well, it's like that's one thing that when you want to see the problem with modern comics is the people that are making comics are not heroes or don't understand heroes or don't have any heroes or their heroes are people that aren't heroes, and
you
so
have to at least relate well to a true hero in order to at least fabricate one. At least read one.
Oh yeah, exactly. And that's one problem that I had with the influx of the British invasion. With Alan Moore and the Grant Morrison and the Garth Ennis, I guess, was part of that. Mark Millar,
I like him,
and I like Mark, but you have the deconstruction of the hero that came. Those guys brought in. And it was the cynicism of that they injected into the comics is basically the cancer that we're dealing with now that eventually has murdered comics is that idea that, you don't have people that are true blue all the way to the core. There's always a flaw somewhere. And
that's a huge, the whole screen, that's a huge topic.
Yeah.
So many parts. And what you're saying is true. But then there's like this and this and this and this. Let's say we erased everything you just said, still there by 80%. Yeah. And it's that massive web of issues that's holding everyone back. And I'll be honest with you, part of me wants to just sit here and explain to everyone, and you can look at me like I'm an asshole because I'm pretending I know something, but I'll explain to you how to make this work and how to have it succeed and exactly how much money you need to do it and how much time you need and where you can find the people and how we can do this. I've thought about it for so long, but that's not the problem. The problem is you got to do that for about 5 years and mean it. And then we're talking. Right? Because in 5 years, you're going to be looking at a stack of those books. And when you see them all together, I give you 5 or 6 books, I think.
Yeah.
When they're all together, you see they fit like they're one company. They look like, what would 100 of those look like different? It would look pretty cool. They'd feel pretty good. They'd look like someone gave a shit from beginning to end. Pardon my language, everyone. But that is the point. It's called consistency. And you're only going to find someone who gets on board and believes in it and says, I'll give you another try. And then you got to give it to them. And they got to say, that was great. Thanks. You got more? And you're like, I do. And then all of a sudden, they're just as excited as I am. And we're going back and forth. And it takes money. And you can't ask for people to fund you up front in any business in the world. So I don't know why it would be different with comics unless they already know you're special, unless they already know your product's great. And nobody knows a single thing about me. If they knew me for the earlier part of my life, they trust me and they believe in me and they jump on. But they don't. And that's fine. I have time to wait for them to discover it at their own pace or their own leisure, now or never. It's not even going to stop me from doing what I'm doing. You know,
Right.
I believe in it. And when people say sacrifice, what would you
What,
give up?
you know,
What would you give up? Would you give up Spider-Man #1, X-Men #1, Batman #5, Conan 1 through 275? Would you give up every single thing in this room? Every piece of art? Would you give up every cent you had? Would you borrow money and do it some more? I've done every single one of those things, and I'm in the process of doing it more, which is why I won't be canceled. I'm not going to stop. And that's why I'm like, you know what? Check me out in a few years if you got to wait. It's fine. I know what I'm doing, and it's a long hike alone, and I don't expect anyone to carry me nowhere. So.
Well, one thing that I've noticed with like a lot of people I really respect who are attempting to kind of fill the gulf that was left by Marvel and DC committing suicide, essentially. They're eventually gonna DIE because of DEI. I'll just say that much. They are DEIing themselves to death. But basically, but when I see the people that are kind of like working to fill that market that market gap that's been opened up, and I see people like Genuine Comics, Dave Brink with his Perfect 10.
Great.
And he's an aspirational character. She's got enough boobs for Corey, but she's a very aspirational character. And then I see people like Eric Ninoltowski with his Shadow Sentry series, and he's got Commander Noble, who's a very aspirational character. And it seems to me that like Marvel used to have Spider-Man and DC used to have Superman, Batman. When you start like expecting people to kind of like want to visit your world, you kind of have to have that pillar character. And what do you think? Vampire is that, or is Ronan that for you?
Absolutely Vampire. No, Vampire for sure. Ronan is it's in order. Ronan is third. The importance is Vampire, and if we got really specific, Vermin is the vampire that bit him in the alley. After he bit Tyrus, he got tased by biting into an AI phone. He put the electricity straight in his face, and he disincorporated into slime. He slimed down the drain right onto the first page of Vermin, where he's like, this ain't the first time I've been dead. I'll just get my shit back together again and slime up, these people. It's like a vampire wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and is like, I'm hungry. I got to go eat something. And he goes to bite a dude and he gets tased instead. And he's like, that did not work out. Now I'm slime again. And I got her. Oh, man. And so Vermin is next. We pick up with him, whose story is literally as old as Earth. A meteor comes across the sky and hits the primordial ooze and lands. That's Vermin. No life on Earth but him. And so everything he is the missing link. He's the original link that let every other link grow. So he erases himself every time he dies, which is why there's no fossil records or whatever of anything. And it's my explanation for how dog eat dog life began on our planet. He was the original dog. Ronan.
So he's kind of like a Vandal Savage then.
Yes, it defines why we as humans are how we are and why we are is as well. His savageness and his I'll eat my own child in a way is why our world's a little bit nasty in this one. So that's part of he's a foil to Vampire. He was the original Vampire. Now Vampire's digitized version of Vermin. Ronan is literally the plane ticket, the boat ride to the bigger world. Like once you're here, someone takes a look off the shore and says, "Is there more?" This is the the world's bigger immediately, and you realize there's more flavors. You're not trapped here. You're not trapped there. And if I sell 4 books at a convention, half of them go to young girls who are huge fans of comics, who love these stories and are more inclined to be reading than young boys at this age. And the reason we're in love with comics is because we were kids reading them, not because you started when you were 40.
Right. Well, that's a big issue in that young males in particular, because when they seized our pop culture, they made it anti-male, especially anti-young male, and so everything that they got, everything that they were handed, everything they were like told to read or in school, had all this like anti-male stuff in it, and you don't tend to gravitate towards stuff that hates you, and that tells you that you're the problem or that you're a bad thing because of how you were born, how you like came into this world, and because of that, young males have just noped out of reading, and they've noped out of a lot of that part of the culture. And they gravitated towards, gaming and things like that. And now that stuff's telling them that they're evil and vile and need to go away. And so, when we grew up at Gen X, we had so many things that were like aimed at the young male, aimed at us in particular. Goonies is not a female centric movie. It's definitely a boy centric movie, and adventure, it has the all those things in it.
Yeah. Well, that whole
And
go on.
Back to the Future was definitely.
Oh no, you're breaking up there.
We're all. No, go ahead.
No, you're getting a little choppy there at the end. I was trying to see if it settled down.
Like blinks on me. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Is the stream good for you? We're getting a little choppy.
Yeah, I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, that whole conversation in comics and who the audience is for, and that is up to who's in charge at the time. And over the years, that line shifted, and demographics and targeting and whatever. But the intent of their effect, that's when it became propaganda. And I pretty much don't peddle propaganda. It's not my concern to the specific conversations that I feel are temporary from generation to generation. They change. And it might be, okay, well, in the 70s, you do this kind of thing. And in the 80s, you do this. And in the 90s, you do this. And that's Marvel's problem. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses of society. And that's now more of a programming effect than any genuine anything at all. So I like to think the Blue Shack comics we're making are universal, totally, more than anything they're touching whatsoever. Why? Because I'm not talking to your sexuality, your drug preference, your violent, not violence preference, your boobs or no boobs, none of that. I'm talking to, do you like adventure? Do you like a mystery? Do you like a little fear? Do you like a little hope? Do you like it when the hero wins out? Do you like seeing a bad guy get their ass kicked every now and then? Do you like knowing what's right and what's wrong spelled out on a page for you? And not because I made the wrong guy look like you or not like you. These are just characters in a story where the setting is happening and the bad guys are the bad guys because they're the bad guys. There's no question about it. And if they're blue, green, yellow, tall, short, fat, 9 eyes, no eyes, it's irrelevant. It's a way to tell a story. And if my stories are based on trying to condition their mind to feel a certain way that is anything but educated, entertained, maybe built up with some pride to try something, maybe a little creativity. Maybe they start wanting to make comic books. Maybe they themselves want to grow up to be a heroic figure, which would only be defined with doing good deeds for others, helping someone else feel better, stepping in when you can. And it's not a project of telling you who you got to be. It's telling you how they're behaving. And so a lot of that stuff is a problem for everyone else, but not for me. And if they want to make it in the books, like you did this, or even a good comment like, oh, you don't have many women. It's like, no, that's just frankly incidental. And you know, I'm never going to have something that's just gratuitous one way or another, because I am dealing with, I like to think my beginning audience is 8-ish. But I can write stuff that a 40, 50-year-old old fan can enjoy. And that's the magic. We love 80s and 70s comics, and you weren't allowed to discuss one of those things I mentioned. And we love them. So how did they do it? By good storytelling.
Well, they just told stories. They just told stories.
Entertainment was the number one goal, and they weren't fixated on how's my IP, how much money will I make in 10 years, do I get credit for this, or did, you know, I designed his cape, I better get, you know, everyone starts fighting over the future of what things happened, and they forgot the immediate now, that all of the original creators came to the office to make a few bucks and do what they love doing, even when it wasn't even popular half the time. These guys have been going for 80 years. Kirby didn't make any money till after.
Well, you know, one thing that I think they make the biggest mistakes now is they forgot how to, that character is everything. That, you know, even if the story is not the best written in the world, if you have a compelling character that people care about, they're going to come back next week. You know, they're going to come back because, you know, they want to see Matt Murdock, you know, with all his Catholic guilt and, you know, but then, you know, the same guy who will go to confession and just spill his guts tomorrow is going to beat somebody half to death tonight, you know, and do a backflip off of a building and land on a ledge or something like that nobody can do, that can, you know, that doesn't have his unique skills. Or you know, the whole, or DC, you know, Bruce Wayne has been fascinating to people for decades, you know, all the way since he was created in the 20s. And
it took 40 years.
Bill Finger, you know, he created this, not Bob Kane, Bill Finger, okay. But he created this great backstory for him, and so everybody knows about that backstory, and then they know that this guy has got more money than God, and he chooses to pull on underoos and beat up criminals in the middle of the night. And it's like, well, it's a fascinating character, you know. Spider-Man, you know, he can catch a bus and save people from coming off of a bridge, but he can't pay for his apartment rent, and he's going to be bad-mouthed in the paper every time.
And that right there, that's what people care about Spider. They don't give a crap that he can swing on a rope. They don't.
No.
They care he's got an old aunt, not the sexy new one. They care that he can't keep his job right and his boss harangues him. They care that he's a teenager that's bouncing around, not figuring things out too well, except every now and then he's perfect.
Right.
in every way, shape, and form physically, but as a person, he can't keep it together because you've got teen readers who
Right.
relate to that. And the readers need to relate somehow to the characters. And that's one,
Yep.
again, the pillar of this universe is that all of these characters are relatable. Even the robot who makes no sense is relatable.
Yeah.
It's because that's the part that gets people wanting to continue to read. Like, why do I want to read the next panel? I'm actually curious what he says.
Right.
That's it. It's that simple, you know?
Well,
I'm curious what they're talking about and I want to know more. You know?
yeah. Well, I honestly think that, you know, pure story, pure character, and a well constructed universe. If you've got those three things, those my three pillars. But if you got those three things, then you've got the perfect formula to build something. And so I honestly think that, you know, if you got the compelling characters and you've got, you know, great stories with those characters, and you build a world around them that's compelling that people want to like hang out in for a while. You know, if you got those three things, then you can build a tower to heaven. You know, I mean, you got the makings of the Tower of Babel right there with a better outcome. But you know, I mean,
If you got the bricks,
yeah, if you got the bricks right,
no,
and
and that's it. It's the continuing process of it. And in many regards, a lot of people are doing what I'm doing better in a lot of ways. But the part that I've experienced is I was with two companies where you got to put them out every month.
right,
And I was the guy handling the artwork to the different artists, and I was the one delivering it to printers. I know exactly what you have to do to plan with the timing, the schedule, and like, well, how long is it going to take him to do that? And what do we got to do
yeah,
here? And what's missing, or how do we fix a problem or go back for edits? That stuff is the mechanical, really annoying part of it. It's work. And
yeah,
that's the part I trained for. It's the part my mind's designed for. And so it's one of those things where you wish you could get out 100 books. Do you have 100 books with a quality? Can you do something that good? If
right,
you're working step by step, issue by issue, crossing the title to title, making sure they come out in the old Stan Lee, you know, Jack Kirby way, where you come up with an idea, you pass it on, someone gives you some sketches, you're like, this will work, and it still ties in, and you follow the rules, you go step by step, listening to how you're supposed to write or how a thing works. I don't want to say there's rules to making comic books, but there's suggestions, and a story is a definition.
yeah,
It's actually a definition of when you put words together to equal a story. That's a definition. You have a character, something happens to them. How are they changed? That's a
right,
story. So if someone says, "Hey, you'll never guess what happened," what? I went to the store today. What happened? Some guy kicked me in the nuts. What'd you do? I left. That's a story because you went to the store, got kicked in the nuts. The end.
yeah,
That makes it complete. And like a song, you can write a song that goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in the middle, 1, 2,
right,
3 in the middle, a little 1, 2, 3 in between that. And if you add your scenes right, oh, I just changed locations.
yeah,
Oh, well, I have to spend a panel or a page defining my new location because if I don't, I just broke a
right,
rule. You can't change a setting without showing a setting.
right,
Camera angles, going too far, breaking the 180 rule, which some people don't know because, for instance, it wasn't learned that far in art, or they never operated a video camera with 7 other people shooting.
right,
You can't conflict with your other cameras. You have to know how to switch from overhead to left to right without in MMA. You can't
right.
switch the camera on 2 fighters or else it looks really funny mid-fight.
Well, you know, one of the guys that makes 6 figures routinely around this area, he put a comic out, and a lot of people like, you know, crow about it or whatever. But that first book was it had one cardinal sin that just completely ruined it for me, and I haven't backed another book from him. And that was the world built. You know, he had rules in his world that he broke to make the plot work.
Okay.
And the reason why that doesn't, the reason why that doesn't work in storytelling, and it's why it's a big, huge no-no, is because once you establish the rules, you cannot break it to make the plot work, or otherwise you broke the plot too.
Oh yeah.
And I see this all the time. It's just like the biggest mistake that I get when I pick up these indie books and even mainstream books now, and that is, if you set rules for the world, then they're gospel. You cannot break them.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you have if your plot goes somewhere where you have to break those rules, then you've got to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot break those rules. Some things are sacrosanct. Some things are set in stone. Some things cannot change. And I know you know this, but if I have any advice to give anybody, is the moment that you establish these rules for your world, and you cannot, at any way, shape, or form, break them, because that's a Rubicon. You cross that Rubicon, nobody's going to trust you again.
Mm-hmm.
And especially early on when you're establishing yourself, if you show that the rules don't matter in your world, then people aren't going to revisit it. People aren't going to care.
Well, and that to me is easily solved by what I would, I guess, rudimentally refer to as programming. You're programming your universe, and you're like, if then let this be that. And I'm like, this is a red corner, that's a blue corner, that's my green corner, that's my yellow corner.
Mm-hmm.
It's fixed. So I start to write something or do something, I'm like, oh well, that can't work because of this and that, so try again. And a lot of times what'll happen is you'll just be denied by your own rules.
Yeah.
And for one example, I'll give you one. I mentioned to you the auroras and the moon. It's a different physical atmosphere on this planet. And basically what I needed was, there aren't plane invasions and there's no navies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's good enough. That can do it. That's acceptable. You don't know what it's like living if the moon's, 100 miles closer. The tides are different. It could be crazy. And the Bermuda Triangle, let's blame it on the auroras and something else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good enough. But in one scene, I had to have Olympia Ah, who's the head of the phone corps, who's in essence the technological giant that runs New Chip.
Mm-hmm.
She needs to go get Vampire because he's off remotely doing something terrible to the whole city. And they need to blow up the cable connecting him to them because he's a threat through the wire.
Mm-hmm.
He's not wireless yet. No one's really wireless. And so they're like, blow up the cable. And I have a scene, it's imagined out. He's in the mountains, and it involved a helicopter dropping out Thomas General Bully. He's a General Bully, the head of the army. He's like the kingpin. And he jumps out of the helicopter and splats next to him. And I'm like, but there's no flight. And I'm like, low-level flight's okay. And a rusty helicopter that's only going 100 feet, 200 feet. Like, if it's hovering the ground, it's not an issue. And if you're flying by sight, you don't need all these new navigate. People did it in the 40s. You know what I mean?
Right.
50s. So I said, helicopter's okay. But jet fighter is not, for example, or guided cruise missile,
Mm-hmm.
And so there's certain rules that once you make them, they're in the programming. And if you're doing your job, which is part of the rules thing I mentioned, I start going, whether it's a storytelling rule, a camera angle rule,
Mm-hmm.
a scene rule, or I made the rule, you got to follow your own lead.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's, people are like, oh, well, you messed up this or that. It's like, yeah, well, they take pictures in movies of people just to make sure they're the same looking. Their mustache looks the same. Or you were wearing a red shirt last scene.
Right.
Why'd your shirt turn blue? Yeah. Like, that's crazy.
And they will notice. People will notice. They will definitely
not only
notice.
that, they look to notice. That's their favorite thing to do, is find stuff. And I'll admit, in every single book I've got, there's at least one small typo error, which isn't someone doesn't know how to spell or this or that. But when you hand a copy of all the letters to your letterer, and then he's got to retranscribe them and put them in, and then you're like, oh no, change this word, and then you do that. I've had entire balloons just vanish, and you don't know they're wrong because it's not like something spelled wrong. It's just not there.
Right.
And you're trying to remember from the last set. So it's like continuity errors happen on occasional mistake.
Yeah.
But when you're putting out every month, you're live on stage like Saturday Night Live, and that's the beauty of it.
Right.
You're running by the seat of your pants, and the audience is waiting for it. And those things, you know, I can find forgivable, which I see people nagging on. Like, it's like, oh, give them a break. They're rushing. You know, they're having to do what they got to do. But that, no, that's unforgivable. Where'd the jet fighters come from, Zach? You just had a planet with no planes, and now there's ships crossing the ocean. And if the ocean's so dangerous, why is she in a sub? It's underwater.
Right.
She's got sonar.
Yeah.
Like that's okay. It's not the same animal, and that's why she doesn't run into a whole lot of ships.
Exactly. But you have to ask those questions, definitely.
Of course. Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you for coming on, Zach. Check out Blue Shack Comics. They are in the description below. The direct link to the Fund My Comic campaign for Ronan Riley is in the chat. It's also in the description below. So check those things out. And keep your eye on Blue Shack Comics. They've got more to come. Every 3 months schedule, right?
Yeah, and right now, because of the success of launching 4 titles, it was going to be I was going to finish Vamp 1 through 6. Then I thought, no, we're going to go to the next stage. We're going to get 4 titles. Then I'm going to work them into it, and we're going to do 4 a year, rotating each title.
Right.
And because of that, I have to step in and do some extra fundraising, as they call. And like I said before to everyone in this crowd, who else do you want running a comic book company who loved comics since they were 8, collected them like it was their job, was immersed under Jim Shooter, learning how to make comics, and then now will sell every single one of them to make this happen for the readers? It's not for me, because if it was for me, I'd keep my comics.
Yeah.
But I already sold X-Men #1. I sold Batman #5. I'm selling Conan #1, 9.8. You can go onto eBay and see it.
Wow.
Yeah, no, literally, and it's not like a boo-hoo or this or that. No. And Xevious is one of the guys who actually really helped me with this. He said, I find that really noble in that they really served your purpose. You might as well pass them on to the next guy.
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, it was a couple months ago, I said, thank you. It's a lot, I said, because I would rather trade this one book for 4,000 of mine, no problem. And I believe this is going to work. I'll buy them all back later.
There you go.
There you go. So get on board, take a peek. And not only that, it only costs you like $6 an issue. We don't look for 20. We don't look for 30. We're just trying to sell single copies. And if you could buy one, buy it. Tell me if you like it or not. And I hope we see you again. If you don't, it's $6, and I apologize. We tried really hard.
Well, hey, that's not too bad. Anyway, well, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for the fluffiest chat, and all of you too for showing up. And we'll catch you next time. This Thursday, I'm going to do a character autopsy on one of my own characters. It was requested in the chat. I always listen to the chat. So that's going to be this Thursday. You can learn about Switch. Very interesting young lady. Anyway, thank you for coming, Zach, and we will see you next time. Follow the White Rabbit.
Thank you, Cooper.
Bye,
Appreciate it. All right, good night.
Anytime, man.
Yep.
Right, night.
Thank you.